Hello, and welcome to the Trepid Technologies Security Plus course. My name is Johnny Bandon, and I will be your instructor for this video series. In this video, we'll be going over Domain 1.2 types of attacks. Now let's get started. In this section, we'll be going over malware. Malware is simply an umbrella term we use to describe any malicious software on the enterprise. Throughout this section, we will learn more about the different types of malware. So the first malware we're going to talk about is ransomware. Ransomware is malware that will encrypt your files, making them unavailable until a monetary donation or funds are sent to a threat actor. So we can see in this photo right here, that big error that comes up. That's because this user is infected with some ransomware. And it says your personal pages are encrypted. And underneath here, it probably says something like send us Bitcoin or PayPal us or something like that. And like all malware, there are many endpoint solutions and techniques to safeguard against this. We're going to discuss these endpoint solutions and safeguards further on in this course. For now, let's just focus on what malware is. And how ransomware infects your computer or your systems is just like any other malware. Maybe a user clicked a malicious link, or they picked up a USB on the floor and plugged it into their computer, and now, boom, their files are encrypted. Trojans are malicious software or code that is disguised as a safe program. Just like the Trojan horse you learned in history class. The city of Troy opened the gate to let the horse in, and boom, hundreds of soldiers came out to open the gates of the city and let the entire army in. Just like that Trojan horse in ancient eras, a Trojan horse today in our technology landscape must also be installed by the user. So as you can see here, Trojans require a user to install them. Now this could come attached to some sort of software that you downloaded, and you didn't check the MD5 checksum or the SHA digest, which we'll talk about later. And now that Notepad++ installation you did also installed a Trojan as well. Now let's move on to worms. Worms are self-spreading malware that will use any means of transmission to propagate and pivot throughout your network. So the main difference between worms and a Trojan, malware, or virus is worms do not require user interaction to infect your systems. Worms can infect the system independently. So think of a worm as a malicious software or virus that's always looking to make connections, right? So we have our computer connected to our switch here. Maybe it's connected to servers. That worm's going to look and try to make TCP connections, or maybe it does Nmap scans to see what ports or protocols are open so it can spread throughout your network. Next thing we're going to talk about is PUPs, or potentially unwanted programs, which are not entirely malicious programs or even software that infects your systems. A PUP is just an add-on or extra unneeded software that clogs up your system. So we take a look at this old browser here. Obviously, yes, we know this is old, but you notice all this. None of this may be malicious. You know, this is Amazon, this is Yahoo, Google, old antivirus software. None of it's going to cause an incident in your network. But look how cluttered it is, just taking up space, right? That's what a PUP is, something unwanted that you don't need, an extension you didn't want. Sometimes when you install software, going through the Windows installation process, they're going to ask you, do you want to install this program as well with the original program you want? That is also considered a PUP. And again, most of these extensions are not malicious, but they are unwanted. Next, we have a fileless virus. A fileless virus is hard to detect and hard to delete. With most viruses, they're going to create a hash, a unique file that will live on your system, in your storage. But a fileless virus does not require local storage to run. Instead, a fileless virus will run in your volatile memory. And this won't create any footprint on your local storage. So you're not going to be able to go to your C drive and see this virus, right? So fileless viruses make their way into your system just like any other virus. So in our example here on our screen, we see a malicious link is sent via email. That user didn't take his user awareness training and he fell victim to that social engineering attack. So they click on that link. The link takes you to a malicious site that installs the virus's script, right? Because that's fileless, right? So it's always going to be running. It's not going to be installed. The payload runs the malicious script, and then the script creates a registry entry that runs the virus every time the system boots up. So this is an example how a fileless virus lives and gets installed onto your systems. Next, we have bots. So bots are malware that will take over some of the compute resources on your system. And when we say compute, we mean your memory, your CPU, right? Those are compute resources. You're going to see this term used in this course a lot. You also see storage resources, and this is going to be your hard drives or your solid state drives, where the OS lives, where your files live. So bots are malware that take control of some of your compute resources. And these bots are controlled by threat actors and will consume your computer's resources at a rate that you typically won't notice, right? So let's say 16 gigs of RAM, maybe it uses like 512 megabytes. And if you're not a gamer, if you're not someone looking at your memory usage, you probably won't notice this. You may notice your computer running a little slower, but if you're not a computer guy or girl, what's that make a difference to you, right? And then a botnet is many or even thousands of these bots working together in unison to create a botnet that has the potential to use a significant amount of computing resources from all the computers they are infecting to then commit malicious acts like a DDoS attack, a distributed denial of service attack. Because let's face it, you're not going to build a supercomputer nowadays to complete a DDoS attack. You most likely don't have the resources to do that. But if you can take just, let's say, 256 megabits of RAM from 10,000 computers, that's a lot of resources you can then use to commit malicious acts. The command and control center of this botnet is going to be called the hub, and it's the brains of the botnet. Or it could just be called the CNC, right? The command and control center. So on our screen here, if you want to download these slides, if you're part of our course, you can see kind of how a botnet works or what the goal of a botnet is: to use resources to perform denial of service attacks. Moving on, now let's go over a logic bomb. A logic bomb is malware that follows a set of logic to activate only when one or multiple logic parameters are met. So essentially saying when a specific condition is met, then we're going to activate this virus. An example of this: malicious code may be embedded into your system. So let's say it's a daemon on your system, and you schedule it to run maybe at 3 a.m. when you're not online. And this logic bomb, right? Let's say it's a cron job or a bash script that says when it hits 3 a.m., launch a TCP connection to my remote server here and exfiltrate all the new data for the day. And maybe this will only run till 4 a.m. More than likely, it'll probably be like till 7:30 a.m. So it has that time to exfiltrate all that data to the server. And then when it hits that time, stop running that script. So the user may never even be aware that this malicious script is running. That is a good example of a logic bomb. And then we have spyware. So spyware is any software or code or add-on that will collect information on a user and send it to a threat actor. Some spyware are viruses that are used for logging keystrokes or gaining access even to a user's webcam. Spyware is going to be often associated with identity fraud or credential harvesting, especially with those keystroke logging spyware, where you're really just trying to find a pattern that people keep using in their keystrokes, and that's most likely going to be their password or their username. Now let's move on to some physical attacks. So let's take a step away from malware into the technical and logical and get into some physical attacks that can happen on our network or on our campus. So physical attacks are anything tangible, anything that happens in the real world. For example, card cloning is when a threat actor clones an RFID badge of an employee who has access to sensitive areas in your organization. Pretty simple, right? What card cloning is. I'm duplicating either your badge, your credit card, and performing malicious acts with my cloned card. Another physical attack is a supply chain attack. They're considered physical because, again, they happen in real world, and that's because they attempt to compromise systems before they reach your organization. So let's say you're buying from a third-party vendor, and that third-party vendor puts a backdoor on that hardware, right, onto maybe an embedded system. That's messing with the supply chain. That's a supply chain attack. Or maybe an attacker attempts to disrupt your distribution, almost creating a physical denial of service attack. Just a few examples of a supply chain attack. Next, we have artificial intelligence. AI is now commonplace in our world, and it's not the scary futuristic robot that kills us all in the Terminator. At least not yet, right? AI in our world could be as simple as a chatbot on a website that automates work away from, like, let's say, a call center. And AI is going to use something called machine learning on our big data. So if we kind of make a little chart, AI uses a machine learning algorithm that gets run against a bunch of data. We call that big data. And from there, they're going to create a consistent baseline of information that our bots can use or our AI systems can use. A common implementation of this for you as a cybersecurity professional. You may implement AI again to create that user baseline or the baseline of our network and how it operates. And you can use that AI in our preventative and detection controls, which we'll talk about later, like our SIEM or our IPS, our IDS systems. And it can help you in detecting, preventing malware or malicious events from happening. So AI can also be our friend, right? And we should be using it in our detective systems, our preventative systems, to take away administrative burden from us. So what's the downside, or what could be a potential risk to artificial intelligence? Well, let's talk about tainted training data. Tainted training data is compromised training data that's being fed to a machine learning algorithm that will generate or create a rogue AI. So imagine a chatbot that cusses or is rude to customers because the training information it was given was all rude customers and rude responses. That's one way AI can work against us when our machine learning algorithms are learning bad data. All right, so that's it for this video. I want to thank you for viewing and stay tuned for our next video when we go over Domain 1.3 application attacks. Thank you.